being half naked in front of a man that you don't know. He basically told me I had the boobs of a 90-year-old. I was on the floor just shaking and crying. You used to be so cute. What happened? You've gotten so fat. In order for me to feel like I was good enough, I had to be perceived as pretty. I owe it to myself to kind of like explore that. It would kill me to think that she would have the same kind of issues that I had growing up. I had something happen to me recently that has not happened for a really long time. I'm not somebody who is used to having like a lot going on in my life, especially from a social aspect. Not a lot of events. I haven't gone to a lot of like parties or gatherings or things like that. I've gone to a few, but not enough that I feel comfortable in that kind of scenario, in those kinds of situations. I had been feeling very irritable for days leading up to this event, which wasn't an uncommon thing for me. I go through waves of irritability, and I'm usually able to find my way back to feeling normal without completely breaking down. But unfortunately this time that did not happen, and I completely lost it. I was on the floor just shaking and crying and hyperventilating and just full-blown panic attack, mental breakdown, whatever you want to call it. And even though on the other side of it now, I'm kind of, I guess to say, embarrassed a little bit about it, even though no one else was around, thankfully. I was completely alone when this took place. But regardless, I was still kind of embarrassed with myself that I had gotten to that point after years of not kind of allowing myself to get to that point, I guess. But it really got me thinking about just how much anxiety and my weight and body image issues have really controlled so much of my life and have been such a detriment on my life and my ability to actually live. Really, I think that I have been dealing with like body image issues from a very, very early point in my life. I went through a lot of what you would call early childhood traumas. I won't say the A word because apparently that's like a bad word to say on this platform. We'll just call it traumas. And I think due to those things and my inability to develop like healthy coping mechanisms, not being shown very much emotional regulation or how to kind of regulate my emotions, I just developed a lot of really unhealthy ways of coping with what had happened to me and my family in the early years of my life. Somewhere along the line, I decided to start turning to food for comfort. I don't know if it was like a control thing or what. I think obviously we get some sort of, I don't know if it's like a serotonin or endorphin kind of release when we eat, especially foods that are like really fatty or high in sugar. And obviously those are kind of foods that I was really drawn to as a kid. There would be times in my early to mid childhood where I would be sneaking into the fridge at nighttime when everybody else was asleep just to eat. Wasn't hungry, but just wanted to eat. And I'm not really sure, like to this day, I don't really know why I did these things, but I would just eat whatever I could, whatever I had access to that was in the fridge. And then I would lie about it because I was embarrassed, I guess. There was just a lot of chaos, I think, in my early childhood, or just in my childhood in general. We moved a lot. And as somebody, I think, a kid who just suffered a lot with anxiety due to the things that had happened in my life, I had a really hard time adjusting to these new situations all the time, adjusting to new places, mainly in a scholastic kind of way and social aspect, because I had a really hard time making new friends. And you would think that if you're constantly thrown into situations where you have to make new friends, that maybe you would develop skills to be able to actually do that more efficiently. But that was not the case for me. And I had a really, really hard time the more and more that we moved, the more and more that I had to try and make new friends, the less good I got at it. And I had a really hard time just kind of making friends. And then moving also made it so that we changed schools sometimes, like halfway through the year or 3/4 way through the year, whatever it was. And sometimes one school is doing one thing and then you go to the next school and you've missed a bunch of things that you didn't learn at the other school because for whatever reason they're not on the exact same timetable of what they're rolling out within each subject. So there was a lot of gaps in my education when it came to certain subjects, and I fell behind and I lost a lot of confidence with my ability to be able to do things like, especially like the science and the mathematics. I've always been pretty good at like English and arts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I lost a lot of confidence in myself when it came to my ability to keep up in the classroom with the schoolwork and stuff like that. And this continued up until high school, when we didn't technically move for the last time, but high school was a really strange time of my life because I went to 3 different high schools just in the very first year. And that was due to my own kind of choices to a degree, because I had a really hard time adapting and fitting in at any school that I went to. And when it didn't happen, I thought, okay, well, maybe if I just try this other school, maybe I'll make some friends there instead. But obviously the schools weren't the problem. I was the problem. And just the way that I was dealing with things internally and my inability to be able to connect with people because I was just so scared. I didn't know how to act in social situations. Many of these places or many of these schools that I was going to, being, brand new in the 9th grade, everybody already had friend groups that they had developed from being in this town together from a very early age, from their elementary school years. And I think it's just a lot harder to kind of make friends, especially if you're not somebody who's good at making friends. Trying to make friends going into high school is not an easy feat. Definitely wasn't for me. And that's not to say that I didn't have anybody that I talked to, but I never really made like good friends, if that makes sense. Like I had acquaintances and stuff. And a lot of that was due to just my inability to be able to, find something to talk about. I never knew what to say. I always froze up. I was just scared all the time. And then I had little things that would happen that you might be able to call bullying and stuff. By the time I was 15, I was 220 pounds. I was very top heavy and I had very large boobs at the time. I was a J cup at the time. So yeah, it was something. And for whatever reason, I felt most comfortable wearing low cut tops because I felt like they made me look thinner somehow. Look, I can't even imagine now, because now I cannot wear low cut tops. I don't know what it is, but I always wear things with a high neck for the most part. I just don't feel comfortable at all showing any cleavage at this point in my life, and I haven't for years now. But back then, for some reason, that's how I felt most confident. But then, of course, it led to people kind of making nasty remarks to me about my body and stuff. And it was always very confusing for me because I didn't talk to anybody really. So the kinds of things that they were saying, it was really hard for me to kind of try and internalize it all and make sense of it, past the point of people just being mean kids. And that was just life at that point. But yeah, like I said, by the time I was 15, I was 220 pounds, and it was at the biggest that I had ever been in my life. I was extremely anxious in school. I started skipping school a lot. High school was I was barely ever there. I fell behind very quickly because obviously if you're not there to learn things, then you're not going to learn those things. And yeah, my grades were really horrible. My attendance was even worse. And I was depressed, I guess you could say, clinically depressed at that point. I can't remember if I was put on medication in my teens. I think I was, and I had a really bad habit of not taking them because I was convinced that they didn't do anything. But obviously I didn't take them long enough for them to actually have any effect on me. So who knows if they would have actually been beneficial to me at that point. I'll never know now because, like I said, it never worked out with the medication. One thing that did change when I was 15, though, is that my mom did get both of us a gym membership at the YMCA. And we started going pretty consistently. And I remember the time that I stepped on the scale and realized that I had lost 10 pounds and just how elated I was. And it was so motivating to keep going. And I did. It did take me a while to kind of start seeing progress because there was a lot of yo-yoing, hiccups, setbacks, that kind of thing. But by the time I was 19, I had lost 75 pounds. I was 146 pounds. So I went from 220 pounds to 146 pounds. One of the biggest reasons that I was so motivated to lose weight was because I had previously gone to the doctors about wanting to get a breast reduction because my boobs were a huge point of contention in my life at that point. They were a lot larger than anybody else's that I knew. Even people who were similar size to me, being overweight, obese, whatever you want to call it, they didn't have the boobs that I had. So it was just, I hated them so much. It made clothing shopping very, very difficult because back then, this was the 2010s, and clothing shops that where you could go in and find things that would fit you if you were like extremely large chested, plus being plus size. It wasn't a common thing back then, at least not for the type, like not for teen styles, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like it is today. There's a lot more options for people out there today. Yeah, I went to the doctors to try and get a breast reduction, and she basically told me I had to lose 50 pounds. At that point, I had no idea what I weighed. This was before I went to the gym and actually found out what I weighed. So she told me I had to lose 50 pounds. My mom got the gym membership for us, and we went through like this whole process with the gym where they kind of like, they weigh you, they check your body fat percentage, they discuss your goals with you and how you're going to get there and what's like realistic and all that kind of stuff. And that was when I stepped on the scale for the first time in years, and I was 220 pounds. I was absolutely flabbergasted. Then I finally reached that 210 pounds after putting a lot of effort at the gym, being consistent and trying to eat a lot healthier at home. And then by the time I was 19, I was 146 pounds, and I reached I was beyond the goal that my doctor had given me. I'd lost 75 pounds approximately instead of 50 pounds, and she approved me for the weight loss recommendation. And then she sent off the referral to a surgeon or to the government. I don't know exactly how it works, but it was covered by OHIP. OHIP is something, I live in Ontario, so it's like the Ontario Health Insurance Plan. I believe that's what it stands for. And yeah, I was so excited. So I got my surgery and everything. I went from, at that point, like I had lost a lot of weight, and a lot of it did come out of my boobs. And when I went to my appointment at the surgeon's place, kind of like for the pre-op appointment, I guess you would call it, where they kind of like look at you and they decide like what kind of surgery you're going to need. He basically told me that he was going to try and deter me from having surgery because I was so young and everything. But then once he actually saw what I was dealing with the weight loss and everything, and just how saggy my boobs were, he basically told me I had the boobs of a 90-year-old. So that was something, and said that we would definitely go through and he would approve the surgery. And he congratulated me on my weight loss and said that it was amazing, that it's not an easy thing to do, and because of that, like, I deserved the surgery essentially. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I remember in the appointment, like, he basically looked at me and said, and there's really nothing else I would fix about you. Your nose is great. This is great. And I was just like, okay. Like, the doctor was there with my 19-year-old self, like, kind of like dissecting my face, like verbally dissecting my face, and basically telling me that I was fine otherwise. Like, I didn't need any other kind of cosmetic surgeries, which I thought was a very strange thing. But I mean, I guess that's his line of work. So, but I mean, I guess I'll just take it as a positive. I'll take it as a compliment, whatever. But it did kind of make me feel very strange in the moment. But obviously, being half naked in front of a man that you don't know is also just a strange experience. But I was excited nonetheless. I was getting approved for my surgery. I finally got my surgery. I went from, I believe I was like around a D cup, double D cup before the surgery with all the extra skin from my weight loss and stuff. And then I was about a B cup after, which was absolutely insane to me. I finally started fitting into clothing that I could never fit into before. And I could get tops that you didn't have to wear a bra with, because I didn't need to wear a bra for like the very first time in my life. Like, for years, like I didn't need to wear a bra, and it was a really good feeling. And I remember loving to go clothing shopping, all that kind of stuff. And I had a really good way about me. I was a lot healthier. I was eating a lot healthier, and I was very active. I was going for walks, going for hikes. I was always riding my bike. I had a gym membership, and I went pretty frequently. Like, I wasn't an everyday kind of gym girl, but I did go a couple times a week and stuff. And then I got into a relationship, my very first relationship. I had no boyfriends in high school. I had no relationships until I was 21 years old. And that relationship lasted 3 years. And unfortunately, it wasn't a horrible relationship, but we were not meant for each other. And it was so centered around just us kind of hanging out, doing nothing, eating a lot of food, going to the movies, going out for dinner, just very food centered, always going through drive-through. And obviously, because I wasn't doing the things that I was doing before, like I wasn't active anymore, I gained all that weight back. I was still dealing with so much anxiety and having a lot of like blow up panic attacks over like social stuff, because he wanted to be a lot more social than I wanted to be, which, I mean, perfectly fine. Like, I think, like, I wish I could have the ability to be that kind of social, but I just get so nervous and I shut down. That was a huge point of contention in our relationship as well. And eventually the relationship did end, and I moved out west to British Columbia for a year. And that was a trip because, you know, in more ways than one. But I just, yeah, I don't even know. That year is a little bit of a blur. I came back to Ontario. I met my boyfriend and very quick became pregnant. And when I was 27 years old, I gave birth to my daughter, and I was at the largest that I had ever been in my life at that point. I came home from the hospital at 254 pounds. I was going through very severe postpartum anxiety, which was diagnosed to me by I think it's called a psychiatrist. I don't know exactly what the terminology was for this guy, but I went to a hospital and they diagnosed me with severe postpartum anxiety and moderate depression. Not like postpartum depression, but just like in general depression. But yeah, I was dealing with a lot and it wasn't good. And I've always been dealing with a lot in that aspect. So it just wasn't good. Eventually I did get up to about 265 pounds post-pregnancy. And that was huge for me because I was heavier than what I was when I came home from the hospital. So that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. And then I started to lose weight again. My looks just in general have always been a huge thing ever since my early childhood, because when I was a kid, a lot of adults in my life would comment on my appearance, and it was always really positive things, but I think that still it can mess with your head as a child because it makes you realize just how important those things are, or at least how important they were perceived to me to be. So my appearance became very important from a young age, and in order for me to feel like I was good enough, I had to be perceived as pretty. And so when I started to gain weight, those comments stopped from people. And it went from, I remember a family member or an extended family member at a family gathering once said the comment, "You used to be so cute. What happened? You've gotten so fat." And I was 15 at the time and I was devastated, which led to a freaking panic attack, of course, and that was great. And I don't even want to talk about it, but that was not a good night. It was the first time that somebody had really kind of called me out for my weight other than myself, because I was always going on about how fat I was and how much I didn't like the way I looked. And people in my own family would constantly tell me like, "Oh, it's not that bad. You're not that big. Oh, it's just baby fat. You'll grow and then you'll lose the weight." But I was 15. Like I haven't grown that much since I was 15. When I finally did lose the weight, by 19, those same family members turned around and told me like, "I was getting really worried about you because you were getting quite big." And it's just like, how like confusing is that to tell me that I'm not big and to constantly like reassure me that no, you're not fat. You're not fat. You're not that big. And then turn around and tell me, "Yeah, you were really big and I was getting worried about you." So like that's just, to this day, it confuses me. And it's just crazy to think, you know, I'm in my 30s now, about to be my mid 30s. I think I'll be having my very last year of my early 30s this year. I turned 33 in August, late August. Whew. And I'm still dealing with so much of the same stuff that I was before. Same kind of body image issues, the anxiety. It is just, it's controlled my life and it has prevented me from really living my life. I have always had passions and interests and hobbies within the arts. I love to sing. I love to play guitar. I love to write music. And I love painting. I love drawing. I love writing. There are so many things that I have stopped myself from doing because I've been so anxious and because my weight and the way that I look has been so important. And if I didn't look the way that I thought that I needed to look, then it's like I didn't deserve to be able to do those things, at least not in the capacity that I wanted to do. I really wanted to perform. I liked being on stage, even though the before stage anxiety that I got was like crippling. By the time I was on stage, it was gone, and it was like I was a completely different person, except for like my shaky leg. I had the Elvis leg. I like, no lie, when I play guitar, if I'm just sitting down playing guitar, like I have to stand, because if I'm sitting down, my leg just starts going crazy and I can't stop it. Like it's just absolutely just start shaking. I let myself just wallow in self-pity, and I didn't do the things that I really wanted to do. And I mean, maybe being in my 30s now, maybe it's too late to find like success with these things, and that's okay. I think I've come to terms with that, but I don't think that it's ever too late to do the things that you love and to do the things that bring you joy. And I'm starting to kind of like really accept that I'm allowed to do those things and I'm allowed to share those things with people, and people can do obviously whatever they want with that. But I think I owe it to that little girl that lives inside me still, who had dreams and who wanted to do those things. Like I owe it to myself to kind of like explore that. And sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional. But I want to be able to do those things because, especially like, I have a daughter, and sorry, I don't want to cry on camera. I see how much she loves to perform, and she loves to sing, and she loves to do things like in an artistic way. And it would just kill me to think that she would abandon those kind of things in her own life because of however she might view herself. It would kill me to think that she would have the same kind of issues that I had growing up. And considering that I'm still dealing with this in my 30s as a mom, I need to get it fixed because I need to be the example that she deserves. Sorry, I'm just gonna take care of this for a second. Yeah, I owe it to those two little girls. The one that lives inside me and the one that I gave birth to. I've honestly come so far from where I used to be, and I know that. I have a long road ahead of me still. I have a lot of things that still need to be dealt with and a lot of habits that I still need to break. And I'm trying to build routine. It's really, really hard. I'm not good at discipline. I'm not consistent, and I fall into those kind of bad habits very easily with myself if I don't keep pushing myself to just stay on track. But I think it's okay for me to recognize that, yeah, you know what? I'm still doing a lot better than where I was, and I've come a long way, and I'm okay. It's okay for me to be proud of myself for that, and to use that, I think, as motivation to keep going and to keep trying to better myself in the future. I am dealing with a lot of physical pain. I think that has to do with my weight. At least definitely the weight would exacerbate my physical pain. I deal a lot with back pain, knee pain, ankle pain, just anywhere that bends, I get pain, except for my arms. Well, actually my shoulders, my neck, yeah. So pretty much anything that bends hurts. And it gets, especially my back pain gets in the way of me living my life and doing things, because I'll take a step and it literally feels like I'm going to collapse because this pain just shoots up my back into my lower back mainly. And it has gotten in the way of me doing certain exercises. It gets in the way of me just doing my housework sometimes, and I have to push through. And thankfully I discovered that Tylenol actually does seem to provide some relief. So I've been trying to take Tylenol at the times where it is really bad, and it does help. But my mom recently gifted me a Pilates kind of like workout set. So I'm very, very excited to try and learn some Pilates and do that, because based on the very limited research that I've done, it's actually really good for your lower back, for mobility, and for building core strength. So I think that will be a very positive thing for me physically. So I'm excited to start learning that and incorporating that as an exercise. I'm also going to keep an eye still on what I'm eating, trying to eat things that are more healthy, like keeping my protein up, keeping my fiber up. Those things are very important. Staying away from like junk foods like candy, sugar. I have a huge sweet tooth, so that's hard for me, especially late at night when I get snacky, or especially when I'm dealing with stress. When I feel stressed, that's the immediately things that I want, is like things that are very high in sugar or like carbs, you know, like pasta, french fries, stuff like that. That's usually when the binge starts too. So, but I'm trying to keep like my daily food intake under 2,000 calories. But I don't want to be like too strict with them being like, no, it's 1,500 calories or it's 1,800 calories. And it's like, as long as it's under 2,000 calories, I think I'll be okay. Because I looked up, and I think I said this in my last video, I would have to eat like over 3,000 calories just to maintain the current weight that I'm at right now. So I think if I keep things at under 2,000 calories, I should be pretty golden, you know? I think the panic attack that I had recently was a huge wake-up call, letting me know just how much is still in there that needs to be fixed. Also letting me know that what I've been doing lately has not been good for me. I've been wallowing in too much self-pity. I have been just kind of not pushing myself to do the things that I need to do with like walking, with meal prep. even just doing my own hobbies. I've been doing a lot of brain rot on my phone and getting stuck in my own head again, and it shows because it showed up in the form of a really bad panic attack. That and the fact that there's like a lot going on with like my move, my weight, and some social events coming up that I'm not used to and I'm very anxious about. It all just kind of coupled together and it broke me for a little bit there. But speaking of my move, I am moving at the beginning of July and I'm very, very excited about it. We've been living in this house for a year, and thankfully the new house that we're moving to is so close by, so my daughter doesn't have to switch schools. That's been a huge thing for me because of what I went through. I don't want my daughter to have to constantly switch schools. It doesn't mean that it'll never happen. Sometimes life happens and you kind of have to roll with the punches, but I would like to at least, like, my one rule is she's not going to switch schools unless it's like a dire situation. She's not switching schools unless the whole school year is done. We move in the summer or we don't move at all, because I don't want the same things to happen to her with the instability and stuff. But she has to stay at her school, and the place we're moving to is brand new, and I'm just so excited because the place that we've been living in for the last year is the opposite of brand new. The floors creak, everything is just so loud here and very lived in and worn down. When we moved in here, the washing machine was absolutely disgusting. We had to clean that really, really well. The drawers in the kitchen, they always come off their hinges, and I'm constantly having to like reattach them to their hinges. And I'm not like mistreating these drawers. It's just like, if you open it a few times, eventually it just falls off and you have to reattach it. And it's very frustrating. The cupboards themselves have no like natural lining, so it's literally just like rough wood inside the cupboards. And I don't know, I'm so excited for our new place because I've toured it a few times because it's just so exciting, and I've had to go take measurements and stuff like that. But it's brand new. Nobody has ever lived here. They're still like working on the construction of the outside kind of part, and they're stacked townhomes, so we are going to have like an upstairs neighbor, but I'm completely fine with that. I'm just so excited. These places are beautiful. Everything is just brand new. Nobody has ever taken a bath in the bathtub or sat on the toilet. I mean, maybe the builders have sat on the toilets. I don't know how that works. I'm going to clean everything really well anyways before we start using anything, but I'm just so excited. I'm going to have stainless steel appliances and a double door fridge and a stove. Instead of having like those coil burners, it's like a flat top stove burner, and I'm so excited to be able to clean that thing because I hate cleaning my stove now. Just a lot to look forward to. And with moving, I'm just looking forward to kind of like continuing on bettering myself in this new place and bringing new habits and forming new habits that are going to be positive for me, and hopefully losing some of the more negative habits in my life that have done absolutely no good for me. I wanted to get on here and kind of talk about that because I'm sure I'm not alone in the fact that anxiety has really taken a toll on my life and stolen a lot of my life from me. And I'm not going to let it steal any more of my life from me. It's a lot easier said than done, especially, the way I'm feeling right now, feeling, motivational and feeling very positive. But I'm just done living in fear. I don't want to be afraid anymore, because the worst thing someone's going to do is not like my music or not like my voice, or, maybe they're going to say something mean to me, but I don't really care anymore. I think one thing that aging has done is it definitely has thickened my skin. I don't care so much about what people think about me anymore, other than like my weight. But if somebody says something mean to me, I feel like I can handle it a lot better than I used to be able to. I remember one time when I was like younger, and some guy yelled out his window at me driving by, like, "No fat chicks." And I was just like, what? Okay. Things like that used to really get to me, and I don't think they get to me as much anymore. It's more my own kind of internal thoughts and the way that I see myself. So, but that is everything that I have to say. And it's a very long video. If you stuck around throughout the whole thing, I really appreciate it. And if you are going through anything similar, then I'm really sorry, because it's not fair, it's not fun. And I really hope that you can find a light and that you can hopefully work towards changing some bad habits and being able to calm the anxiety and finding life again and actually being able to live it. Because that's the hardest thing sometimes about being alive, is actually living. And I am ready to start feeling like I'm actually living and not just getting by all the time. But I know it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's a lot easier said than done. So we'll see how things go. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I will see you in a video again very soon. Bye.